Okay, I'm back. I had to do a part two because I wanted to clarify some things, so that's why I'm recording this. It's Sunday morning right now. That the beginning part of this video was made Friday night. But yeah, just to clarify a couple things, I'm gonna be looking at my notebook because I just wrote a lot within the last 24 hours. Obviously, the things have changed in my thinking within the last 24 hours. But one thing I want to clarify is that emotions is that you can choose how to respond in the exact moment when you're feeling them. And the one thing I want to clarify is that the same way that you are not your thoughts, because your thoughts are fleeting, obviously we can't control which thought comes in next or anything like that. I would say in like manner, our emotions are also very, very fleeting, and they exist almost for as long as we give attention to them or notice them. An example that I would have is that, let's say someone tells a joke at your mom's funeral, and you're happy and you're sad at the same time. Overall, let's say your macro emotion is sadness, but there's maybe a micro emotion that can overlap with that. That's a bit of happiness. And I would say not like a mean joke, but like the type of joke or something that would make you laugh. Like, oh, remember that time when she did X, Y, and Z, or remember how she would always, I don't know, wash her plates 3 times before putting them on, like something like this that would make you laugh while she was alive, but also make you laugh while she was dead. Like this type of emotion that you would feel simultaneously. Um, I think that's an important aspect to realize of how fleeting emotions are, because at that exact moment you can still choose to identify with your sadness. You can choose to identify with that little bit of whatever positive emotion that is. Maybe you can call it being humored, call it being happy, whatever it is. You can choose to identify with that at the moment. You can choose to identify with both at the same time and say, I'm happy, I'm sad overall, but I'm still feeling moments of happiness. And in this exact moment, if one were to be asked, are you happy or sad? I don't know what that answer would be. And I don't think anyone else can answer that question for anybody else except the individual. But the one thing I want to point out is that we have the option to switch between emotions, and we have the option to also layer them up. As long as you are aware and you practice actively choosing, you can choose to engage with that joke and feel that bit of happiness or a positive emotion for a second, or you can choose to engage with your sadness and not engage with the joke at all. You can even take it a step further and get defensive, and you can call the joke inappropriate. Or another option is that you can see other people laughing at this joke, and you can choose to have like a mindset of joy and experience that ounce of joy if that's what you want to experience in the moment. Or you can even pretend to have a moment of joy just so that others can experience that quick moment of whatever that positive emotion is. And again, I would say that, or I would argue that the intent on being fake here is not a bad thing, because this is how you're choosing to let them have this experience that they clearly want to have. You can also, again, just choose to sit in your sadness. Yeah. And maybe a fourth option I would say is that you can, if you want to experience a sad environment, not in the way that misery loves company, but, you know, really intensify, like sit in the saddest thing you can sit into. You can also say things to make people, you know, feel that thing as well, or resonate with you, or, you know, start crying a bit harder, or say things that are even more sad. And you will get that experience if that's what you choose to have. And I think in these situations, a lot of us don't realize that we're not actively choosing, but we absolutely can choose. And in a single day, and this can go down to the hour, to the minute, but in a single day, we're cycling through so many emotions, and generally they're out of our control unless you have like great willpower to maintain a single emotion constantly, or consciously and constantly, because typically the emotions just flow from one to the next, and they cannot be predicted because our external environment typically affects us a lot, and also our thoughts affect us as well, because typically we don't ever stop and say, wait a second, how am I going to react to this? We're more reactionary. I should say I, because I'm generally talking about myself with most of this stuff. But my conclusion that I've had is that the experience that I see other people having is just my perception, because they may also be doing things just to give me a certain experience that they think I want to have. So like one of these exercises that I've been doing, let's say like a reprogramming exercise, is that when I hear a word or an event or a thought, I try to pay attention now immediately to what emotion arises and then observe what I'm thinking or feeling in that moment. And then I'm asking myself, where did you learn how to respond like this or how to respond in this way? And then immediately try to change something about that response. And I think if anyone else does this, you'll start to notice how much of your life is actually spent on autopilot, where you're not actively engaging and making choices, but there's just a lot of reactions. And yeah, it's just a lot of reactions. Sorry, what I want to say was that there are a lot of reactions that look like decisions, but they truly are not decisions. They are just reactions. And that is a state that I think I have been living in my entire life. But the moment I started to, let's say, again, play this game of life, things became a lot more fun just because I feel like I have the ability to actively participate instead of, again, just letting things happen to me and going with the flow. And basically, whatever situation you're in, you can consciously decide what experience you want to have at that exact moment. Act accordingly, even if it's using cheat codes and shortcuts or whatever. I don't even know if those things would even exist in this worldview because it would just be playing. I think only those who maybe who are jealous or who have not thought of it will call it cheat codes or shortcuts, because in reality, it doesn't matter. One thing I was trying to say as well in that last video, I'm using a game as an illustration, but I can also use a movie as an illustration as well. Sometimes we entertain ourselves with movies to feel scared, to feel hurt, to feel humor, to feel like an adrenaline rush. Like whatever type of movie you watch, you typically are going into it looking for a certain experience or feeling. And we never take these movies too seriously or games too seriously because we realize they're not permanent. And I would say same thing right now in real life. Everything is real, but nothing lasts forever on a universal scale. So it truly doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter if you recycle on a universal scale. On a local scale, maybe it matters, but on a universal scale, absolutely not. And the good thing about this is that, let's say in this game theory of life, is that you can choose which scale you want to play on and make decisions based on that. So you can choose a local scale where recycling gets you a trade-off of other people thinking that you care. They think that you're a respectable person, you care about the environment, and that you're playing a role that they believe to be the right way. And you can play the game on this local scale. You can also play it on a universal scale and throw trash right out of the window. And then the trade-off might be getting a ticket from a police officer or people around you not liking you. And between these choices, you can choose what you want to experience. Maybe you want to experience an ego boost. So you start to recycle. It makes you feel better that you're doing something productive. Maybe you want to experience a financial burden and you get that ticket from a cop. Or you want to experience a community or a sense of community. That's why you're living in alignment with everyone else. Or you may want to experience a bit of isolation because you're like, fuck it, it doesn't matter. And, be isolated from people who are playing this game at a very local level or smaller worldview, perhaps is the word I can use. And again, this goes for every single choice in life. And overall, just realizing how much control I potentially have has made life very, very exciting for me. I want to give an example of a big experience. And I think just kind of how I mentioned, like with the worldview, it would be the scale that you decide to, let's say the scale or the worldview you decide to adopt or the lens you decide to see life through. That is typically, how do I say this? Like our first worldview is normally not a decision. It's something that we adopt until we have to change it. So if you've never gone through a moment where you're like, why do I believe what I believe? Why is this my worldview? Why do I think this is right? Why do I think this is wrong? Where do I even get the concepts of right and wrong from? Like when you have these conversations with yourself and then actively start to change, I would say at that moment, then you start playing your game of life at a different level. And it's not until that we adopt these changes that we again start playing differently. I can give an example. I grew up as a Jehovah's Witness, believing in Jehovah, believing that the end of the world is coming soon. And for me, that was the worldview that I have or had. There are some people who have other, let's say, larger scale worldviews, like, doomsday cults. There are some people who believe all men are liars or all women are liars. And that's the worldview that they have chosen to adopt, or at least not have chosen to question yet. Believing in ghosts is another worldview. Believing in an afterlife, that's also a thing that people believe in. And these all shape the way that they go through the world. So if I want to experience this rush, like time is running out, then I can consciously join the Jehovah's Witnesses with a huge trade-off, in my opinion. If I want to experience pain, then I can keep the worldview that all men are liars or all women are liars. And then to validate that, I'll probably look for experiences that say, okay, I'm right, this is how things are. Even though there's probably millions of chances to drop that worldview, I'll keep it if that's what I want to experience. And on a smaller scale, or smaller worldview or smaller experiences, I can experience something like hunger by fasting, or I can decide to experience gluttony by going to an all-you-can-eat buffet, or I can experience adrenaline by speeding and driving recklessly. And I think realizing that there are many different ways to get to that same experience or feeling that you want to have, this can help you change your habits and do new things and start acting in the moment when you realize what is it that you want, what is it that you're chasing after, what is this experience that you're looking to have. Because speeding might give you that rush or whatever, that rush that you're getting, but talking to girls at a bar might do that same exact thing to you. And when you realize that this is the experience that you want to have, or this is the emotion that you want to create, you can take many different routes to get that. So instead of speeding, you might decide to talk to a girl, whereas some people might look for like that rush in life, and they might buy tickets and book a trip to another country just to go experience bungee jumping in nature. And again, that's a very valid experience. But if they were to stop and ask themselves, let's say this trip is a couple months out, if they were to stop to ask themselves, what experience am I looking to get out of life right now? And let's say that is some type of adrenaline, then what they could do is create those experiences right now. Maybe they're sitting on a bus right now and there's somebody next to them, they have social anxiety, they can absolutely strike up a conversation with that person next to them and keep doing that. They can, again, if they want, they can drive a little recklessly as well. But just thinking of how can I create that experience that I want right now in this moment, and then live like that. Of course, maybe there's a trade-off or consequences, but that's just something to think about. At the moment, I want to experience being helpful. I also want to experience being able to look back at my old videos and see like how I've changed like over time, which is why I started making videos like way back 2011 on my other YouTube channel. But one of the things I want to experience is being helpful. And with that, there's definitely a trade-off, because in being helpful and creating videos like this, you're also creating or making yourself very vulnerable in a world where people can make your life hell online. And so then in my version of hell that I potentially can experience, once that happens, or if that happens, I can acknowledge that this is unwanted. Like, I do not want this. And then what I can do is just have a different experience again, which could be the trade-off. So let's say, hypothetically, I don't make money off YouTube, but if I ever did make money off YouTube, I might trade in my privacy for peace. Which may also have like this trade-off of making less money, which are going to affect other things in my life, but there is still always a choice that has to be made. I think that probably can apply to celebrities too, who, they want the experience of being adored, not on the shallow level, but just being adored by a bunch of different people, a bunch of people, whatever experience they have probably will validate their worldview. And at the same time, they are getting a trade-off. They lose all of their privacy, and that's probably not fun. But again, they absolutely have a choice, especially when they have the money. They don't have to stay living in New York or California being bombarded by the paparazzi. They could just as easily go live in the middle of nowhere in Mongolia and live out the rest of their life. Like if they wanted to, like there is a choice. So I'm not saying this because I don't feel bad for them, but like this is the game that they have decided to play, and this is the experiences that they clearly want, even if they say they don't want, because you can make the choice. There's always just a trade-off, and you have decided, okay, this is less bad than this for me, so this is what I'm going to keep. Even though I don't like this, you're still, by not making a decision, you're still keeping a trade-off. You know what I mean? I hope that makes sense. Anyway, one of the other things I want to mention is that the choices that you make in life aren't really that big of a deal, so they can be made relatively quickly. And also, like, you can't miss what you've never had. So just in putting your purpose and participating in life just changes the way you live. And it also at the same time allows you to not be a victim. I think it's been pretty clear in my other videos that I am a strong believer that it is everyone's individual responsibility to be responsible for their own triggers, and it's not other people's responsibility to be aware of your triggers, especially as, you know, adults. I think I've made this very clear that I feel like it's in most of my videos. But looking back, there are moments, many moments, where I have been assholes to some of my friends, and I have to take responsibility and say that this is the experience I wanted in that moment. So like when a random person says something that's offensive to me or tries to sabotage me or whatever, I may not like it, but that's just life. Like I've caused pain to other people, obviously. So why should I expect that pain should not also come to me? And if we think about, let's say our family life, let's say for those of us who feel like we have good parents, like we would call our parents like they have been not perfect, but we've had like good parents. For those of us who feel this way, I think we can all recognize to some extent or in some way or at some point, being raised by them for 18 years, they have traumatized us in some way or conditioned us to behave a certain way. And in that past moment, we absolutely should be giving them the responsibility, because that's what they wanted us to experience at that moment. Even if we like to make excuses for them and say, oh, they weren't aware, they didn't know, there is always a decision that could have been made, or the decision to not decide, or the decision to not think, because you can always do these things. But who they were at that moment is not who they are now. And I don't think we should hold them accountable for that. The same way that who you were last year is definitely not who you are now, or who you are at 13 versus 18 versus 25 versus 30. Like these are probably very, very different people. And just focusing on the only version of us that exists is the version that exists right now. Just like in a game, there's really nothing static about us. Like not any state that we're going to be living in is static about us. Not any thought is, our thoughts aren't static. Our body isn't static. But I say all this just to emphasize for those who are on the receiving end of an unwanted experience, if it is in the past, leave it there. Unless if the game that you're playing involves you living in the past, you can absolutely live in the past. But if it's in the present, realize that the situation is not permanent, just the way that you are not permanent, and try to just consciously feel or follow and just be aware of, let's say, how you've been conditioned to respond to life, and try to not live life anymore with things happening to you, but more so you are taking control of life. And this is why I think this whole thing is all very important, and probably the reason why I'm making this video anyway. Because again, after we die, no one has any proof, at least in my opinion, no one has proof of what happens. We have some guesses. But if your life truly flashes before your eyes before you die, kind of like those credits in a movie, or, you know, something like gives like a summary, like if you see everything, and you're seeing the highs and the lows of every good and bad experience you've had, maybe the experience of others and how you've affected them as well, I'm willing to bet that living life as an active player who was ready to feel everything and experience everything and was aware in the exact moments as they were happening would be way more meaningful than living life as a robot who has been programmed to think, see, feel, and respond a certain way, and never took a moment to participate in this game and didn't like the challenges that they were given, which were challenges that many other people in the same game had, but they just responded differently. I think at death, this way of living or this perspective would probably be the most impactful because, again, most people are living life on autopilot, even when they don't realize they're on autopilot because they're just uh, responding in a way that they have been conditioned or taught to respond and have not taken the time to actually create new responses. An example I have of people who handle bad situations differently is we can take, I mean, I'm using this example because I think it's pretty common, and it can range like two people who have gotten to two different people, in, let's say, in different states or wherever they are. One is New York, one's California, and they both get into really bad car accidents. The extent of how bad it is, you can use your imagination based on whatever you think. Let's say the first person chooses to never drive again and they are terrified. The second person's response is a little bit different, and as soon as they get the chance to hop behind the wheel again, they do it immediately or ASAP. And again, in this situation, both these people have had almost the same exact car accident. Now, not one response is better than the other. They're just different, even though I know we would probably be very inclined to say the first person is traumatized, so they can't do it. The second person is very brave, and they are resilient, which allows them to bounce back. Remove these labels, remove labels traumatized, remove the label brave, resilient, and just look at the experiences that they're having and that they're following, and look at how they live life, and don't judge it. Let people live in their experience without interfering too much. This is a problem that I have, that I've become more aware of, is that in my, let's say, the way I have been programmed or conditioned is that I feel very much inclined to interfere, to encourage people, to help them out, to try to stop their pain, which I can also view as to try to limit their experience because I don't want that experience for them. And I'm not going to say that interfering with their game is a bad thing, but I will say is that I can do a much better job at not judging other people and the way they play their game, and accepting that each player gets to create their own rules and their own responses outside of me. And I think a lot of us, when we don't accept this, this makes us upset with other people. And we say things like, hey, you can't be racist. Hey, you can't let your child be gay. Hey, you can't wear a skirt, you're a man. You can't, like, we're all of these like things that we believe other people can't do or should not do. And we can probably, it's probably easy for all of us to make a list of 20 things we believe people should not do. Doesn't fucking matter at the end of the day. And when other people have the same list as us, because they've been conditioned to have it, again, it validates our worldview and keeps us in that worldview. So this is why I think it's so important to just stop and think about the things you believe, or stop and realize, what lens am I living life through, and what lens do other people have, because perhaps I've just adopted this from them. Like, really looking back, asking where you learned this. It happened to me over the weekend. I was ironing like a dress shirt, which I haven't really worn in a long time since being a Jehovah's Witness. But as I was ironing it, I realized, okay, I know how to iron a dress shirt really well, from this part to the collar to the, I don't know the names of the sections, but I know how to iron a dress shirt section by section. And I just took it for granted, like, okay, I know how to do this, but some people don't. And I asked myself, where did I learn this? And I stopped and thought about the one person who taught me this skill years ago when I was like maybe 12 years old or something like this, probably even younger. And realizing that everything I know how to do right now, I probably had to learn or copy from somewhere else. Maybe the way I hold my pencil. Who taught me how to hold a pencil this way? Who's the exact person? I don't know, but I'm just trying to point out, even, let's say, the way I'm speaking, my gestures, my facial expressions, a lot of things are learned, or let's say programmed into us. And just taking a moment to stop for every single thing and ask, where did I learn this? Do I want to keep responding like this? That gives you a lot of choice in life, and essentially it opens up, it makes life feel like you are very, very free when you start responding from this place. And basically being both the character and or avatar, like, that you're playing with, and the player at the same time, adds a lot of purpose to life, because you're participating, and you're participating if you want, and you can also decide not to participate in life and let life just happen to you, go with the flow like water, and that's absolutely okay too. One of the other things you can do is, again, I can mention kind of like cheat codes and shortcuts, but playing smarter and not harder. Like, you don't have to create a meal plan and diet for 3 months. Just live every moment based on the experience that you want, and it will happen. So that might be something like pause it. Like, if you're really on a weight loss journey and you're really about fitness, it starts in the now. That might be pausing this video to do some jumping jacks, push-ups, sit-ups, or whatever. It might be just sitting here and start, like, stretching your neck side to side as I say it. But being healthy now in every present moment will get you closer to that experience that you would like to have, which is why there's so much importance on, like, now. Like, what do you want now? Start doing things now to experience that, and eventually your other goals will fall in line as well. And, like, again, I should mention that there are other things like shortcuts, like surgery, which is, maybe you can call that a hack, or like you can date a fitness instructor and date a fitness instructor. These things are also possible to give you that same experience to reach that goal. And I would say, don't let other people make you feel bad because you're playing smarter than they are, or because you're playing outside of the rules that they have made for themselves, that they expect everyone else to live by. That's probably one of the greatest things that keep us unfree. But again, on the other end, if you want to experience feeling bad, you can absolutely experience that. There's nothing wrong with that. So you may want to lose the weight, and you may feel that getting surgery is a dishonest way of doing it, because a person who's very serious should be working out. If that's the worldview you want to adopt and you still want to get the surgery, you can absolutely do it. Maybe the trade-off is that you'll feel bad, but again, you have a choice over how you feel, if that makes sense. Again, the emotions that come to you are not who you are. It's what you decide to engage with. And I know I'm mentioning the word choice a lot, but there is some level of illusion around the control that we have. And I would say this is probably the biggest piece of the game, because you can do all these things. You can eat healthy, you can exercise, you can get surgery, you can date the fitness instructor, and you can never meet your goal or the experience that you're set out to have. And that's okay as well. Because again, life is short. You literally could start doing these things and have a heart attack, die, lose a leg, get cancer. Something can happen to somebody else, where now your priorities have to shift. So doing things in the now may help, but you do not have total control over what you experience. And I think that is a huge part of this, is just accepting that a lot of things are out of our control, and it's okay to be out of our control. And when these things happen, to not judge them, whether they are good and bad, but just accept them as experiences. And just the only thing you can control is how you respond to each experience, whether they are good or bad. And I'm pretty sure we all know at least one person that falls into these categories. We know someone who resists bad experiences because they want to only feel good. And we know people who resist good experiences because they prefer to feel bad. Both of these people are okay. Not one is better than the other. The person who does bad and the person who does good, I would say, are both necessary parts for this entire ecosystem that we have here. The same way that the players that we have in this game who are aware, and the players who are unaware of what they're doing in their actions and how they're thinking, like some yin yang type shit, both of these people are necessary parts of this entire ecosystem that we have. Like, the good and bad, we have a very hard time in society accepting things that are bad or unwanted because of our worldviews, essentially, at the end of the day. And the rules that we decide to play in this game affect why we label things as good and bad. But inherently, those are just concepts that we have made up. The one thing that's, I want to say, it could be a good thing, this could be a bad thing, that's up to you. But just the one thing that we do not get to choose is the avatar, the character that we're playing with in this game, or like certain circumstances around who we are around at birth, like our culture, our language, our genetics, our IQ, our health. the timeline that we're in right now in the 2020s. Like, these are things that are completely out of our control. But the one thing that I would say a lot of us have access to now is information. And if in this world view of the game that information is power, I feel like ChatGPT is probably one of the most exciting things that any of us can get our hands on. I was thinking about an example of, let's say you have your brother who has done something terrible to you. Maybe he's stolen your wife or stolen a bunch of money from you. You can easily go into ChatGPT and be like, hey, ChatGPT, here's a situation between my brother and I. This is what he did. Try to help me move on. Suggest me books, podcasts, or articles on how to handle the situation. ChatGPT, please draft a message that I can send to him. You can do all these things really, really quickly to make a lot of progress by getting access to information that can help change your mind or see things differently. And you can even kind of use ChatGPT as like a soundboarding device to say, hey, can you correct my logical flaws? I want to have this worldview or think of things at this higher level or lower level. And you can really adjust it towards the experience that you would like to have and make a lot of changes. I don't know if people are using ChatGPT like this, but it is a very beneficial tool if you don't have people around you, but very beneficial into getting like a lot of information quickly. One of the things I do want to say, and this may be controversial, but I don't necessarily believe that you have to mean what you say if it will lead to the experience that you want, such as reconnecting. Because I know some people, like, if you ask ChatGPT to draft a message and you don't really feel that message or believe it, I do think it is okay to send, even if it is not sincere. For example, the message might say to your brother, I forgive you. In reality, you don't forgive his ass. Like, you're still holding some resentment, but the experience that you're looking for is one of reconnecting, and you understand that this is a necessary part in order to reconnect. So on a very micro, local level, some people might say this is insincere, this is fake, this is whatever. On a grand universal scale, doesn't fucking matter. You're going after the experience that you want to have, and if you have to say this, maybe you have to trade discomfort and the way you view yourself for this experience, and that's the trade-off that you can decide to make. No one can judge you for it. It's not right or wrong. But I definitely think it's important to put yourself in control of the experiences that you want to have, and not by all means necessary, but also, yeah, by all means necessary. Like, do what you have to do to get that experience. And just not to look like a hypocrite, I should mention one of myself, because obviously, like, when you're not a Jehovah's Witness anymore, you lose very valuable relationships that you've had with family members and friends. And I have had this one family member that I've had a very strained relationship with, and I would say this is both of our faults. And we haven't spoken in months. And now I could change that if I wanted to, but that's not the experience that I'm looking for at this exact moment. I think I feel very comfortable sitting in, I don't know if I would call it sadness, but for a long time, I probably would have called it regret and sadness. That's how I would have labeled it. But also at the same time, I have to respect their experience, even if I feel hurt. And even if I realize that me not talking to them is probably also hurting them, that is absolutely okay. Like, that is just a part of life. I should not hold the attitude that, oh, this bad thing is happening to me, this is so sad. Maybe other people might want me to feel that because that might validate their experience and say, oh, well, that's terrible what the Jehovah's Witnesses do to people. But, and that's again on a very local, small, cultural mindset or view of the world, again, which is very important if you want to survive here, trade-offs. But on the grand scheme of things, it does not matter. It doesn't matter if the male lion eats his children. Like, again, we may think it's sad, but on a grand scale, does it matter? Absolutely not. So I can say that I was feeling very, very abandoned. And if this feeling of abandonment was something that I wanted to right now eliminate and get rid of this feeling, it is in my power to do so. Again, I can be insincere. I can start talking about Jehovah again and pretending yada, yada, yada. The trade-off, maybe that would be draining for me emotionally, but if there's an experience that I want and the experience is reconnecting with this family member, it is within my power to do so. And I think a lot of us really struggle with taking responsibility for choices that are in our hands when it's absolutely within our hand to change, especially like relationships with people. And this feeling of abandonment probably becomes more undesirable when I start to resist the feeling rather than just observing it and not taking it personally, which is where this whole game theory takes place, because again, it's not personal. This is just a part of life. It is a part of the game. It's a part of what just happens. Maybe the best way to say it is like, it is what it is at the end of the day. And I think the part of the game that puts, this is the part of the game that puts control back into my hands, where I can recognize, okay, this person has hurt me years ago. And at the same time, this person who hurt me years ago is not that same person right now. The same way I, the person who was hurt at that time, am not that same person now, unless I would say the pain probably can get carried only if I'm carrying it. And I hope that makes sense to a lot of people. Like, the pain that you're carrying back there is only still here if you are carrying it. Like, it is okay to let go. You do not have to identify with that pain anymore, because it's in the past. It's an old situation. Who you were then is not who you are now. The person who hurt you then is not the same person who you are now, even though we would like to believe that, because believing that that pain is still there, that we're still living in that, keeps us rooted in the same rules of the game that we're playing in. But if you do decide to play with different rules in this game, you can do that and have, in my opinion, a much, maybe it could be better experience, but an experience where you have full control over what you want to experience. And then you can engage with those experiences and emotions the way you want to. And let's say that this has gone on, hold on. And so this, I'm not gonna put my pain in air quotes, but I'm also kind of putting it in air quotes now at the moment, but I wouldn't have done this like 2 weeks ago. This situation has gone on for years, but only recently did I realize that I was letting my emotions run wild and not controlling them. But now that I'm noticing them as they come and as they go, that abandonment that I feel typically only exists when I think about it, or it only exists when I like daydream and live in the past. It's not static, it's not permanent. And if we never spoke again and one of us died, I think there would be more regret if we felt like we didn't have a choice or didn't take advantage of an existing choice. Where if this happens, maybe in that moment I would feel regret, but with the level that I'm living life at right now, I understand that these things are just a part of life. I understand that that person, again, who hurt me back then is not that same person who, I don't know, who's interacting with me now on the rare occasion that we do have some type of interaction. But these are just part of experiences of life. And again, at the end, if your life flashes before your eyes and you're able to see everything, I think actively participating in life and knowing that, oh, I had a choice. I decided not to talk to this person again. I decided to feel this bit of sadness, this bit of depression, this bit of euphoria. Just actively choosing, and again, not saying one emotion or one feeling is better than the other, removing that. That is, for me, what a fulfilled life looks like. Experiencing everything on the spectrum, good and bad, and all the events that connect with them in between. And so here's some experiences that I haven't had that I'm curious to have, and maybe and this may sound a bit crazy, but like, I've always been someone who's been very like OCD level clean, even though I don't have OCD. But I've never had the experience of having a messy room and like being one of those, I don't really play video games, even this whole thing is about games. Being like that lazy, that archetype of a lazy gamer who doesn't clean his room. I've never had that experience because that's just not how I was raised. But that would be something that'd be interesting to try for like a month, just living like that. Not judging it, not saying it's good or bad for any of these things. And I've not been like a a pet owner. So I would like to be a responsible pet owner, take care of a life for a couple of years and see how that works out. I've never been a gym freak or somebody who's like, always working out in an imbalanced way where that becomes their whole personality. Haven't experienced that, but that's something that I'd also be interested in. I've never experienced unemployment while not struggling, because I've been through unemployment and struggling. I've experienced that, but I haven't experienced unemployment and not struggling. That would be something that would be interesting too. I would like to experience breaking an unimportant bone. I've never broken a bone before, never got stung by a bee, would like to try that. DMT, never done that, but I would like to do that as well. I'd like to experience not caring about people's feelings while talking to them. Another thing that I wrote down that I wanted to experience, I wrote this down yesterday, or the day before, no, I wrote this down yesterday, probably a couple of hours before I got this haircut. I was like, I'd like to try getting a mohawk. A little too late for that now. Dyeing my hair, getting a tattoo. I've never worn a dress before. I've never worn like a daishiki or anything like that. Just there's a bunch of different, let's say, appearance things that I would like to try or experience. And again, not saying that one experience is inherent, not viewing any of these as bad, strange, weird, crazy, nice, good, not labeling any of them, but just having them be experiences. And in this game of life, I think experiencing things is probably one of the most human things we can do. And I know we try to limit them because we want to have a certain set of experiences that we would call comfortable. But again, I don't think that's what the purpose of living life is. Like if my life flashes before my eyes and like every experience is like number of points I get in the game, I want to have like the most points, the most experiences, the most diverse things, instead of living in this bubble that I have created for myself. And so that's one thing I would encourage everyone to do, is just make a list of experiences that you'd like to have or things that you'd like to do, and not take life so seriously and not like follow the rules that everyone else sets around you. Again, there might be a trade-off, because the people playing this game in your area might like the Jehovah's Witnesses might not talk to you anymore, might try to sabotage you, might emotionally manipulate you. Like these things they're just trade-offs. But if you really want an experience, fuck the trade-off sometimes. Just go ahead and do it. And just keep in mind that we probably have about, I don't know, I want to say 50 years of like optimal physical ability or independence where we can do things by ourselves. So yeah, definitely do what you want to do, especially like if the experience doesn't really affect others too much. Then I'm definitely all for that, because one of my life rules that I created a couple of years ago was do whatever the fuck makes you happy, as long as it doesn't impact other people around you. I would probably update that rule right now after the last 2 weeks, because it's not that you being inconsiderate is a thing, but again, on a very local, small view, you should absolutely be aware and care about how you affect the people around you. On a grand scale, it doesn't fucking matter. But because I'm kind of not living between two worldviews, but I would definitely say I am trying to live between two worldviews and find balance between what everyone else around me thinks and how this impacts them and how whatever they believe I should follow. And then also my own set of rules, where I realize that everything that I see around me has been created. Every rule has been created by us, and we've just decided to go along with it, or we've been coerced to go along with it, but it's not really necessary, because again, animals don't live by our rules. We are some type of animal. Like it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? And maybe these are going to be like my last concluding thoughts, because everything before the last 44 minutes were things that I wrote down like early yesterday morning as I was cleaning the house. I kept pausing to write, and I would say these things are more the thoughts that I had this morning, which will probably conclude my video. One of the things I thought about is daydreaming. The act of daydreaming is very passive, and this crossed my mind after hearing Carl Jung's active imagination thing, and just realizing that when I'm daydreaming, I don't realize that I'm daydreaming until either I'm in the middle of it or until maybe it ends and I kind of snap back to reality. But the onset of when the daydream starts, I'm very unaware and I'm very much not in control of this. It is something that just happens to me. And I think it's very important now, again, at least today, from today on, is just to try to be aware of where my brain is or where my thoughts are as much as possible so that I can actively participate in my thoughts or what goes along in my head rather than letting it just happen to me. In some moments, not all the time, I should say. Like, I thought about breathing, how breathing is a very passive act that I typically don't have any control over. But there are some moments where I am consciously breathing. But the majority of my life, the majority of my day, the majority of an hour, I'm not actively, consciously breathing. I'm just going with the flow, maybe breathing based on the air quality around me. And I thought about this in comparison to driving, which a lot of us do, and that there are moments when I'm driving actively and passively. If you drive a lot, you definitely know like the feeling of being on the highway and just like driving on autopilot, where your mind is thinking about something else completely different, maybe like the event you're going to, the argument you just had, but you're still driving, but you're not actively driving because your mind isn't only focused on the road. Like your attention is either divided or somewhere else, and you're basically just going off of muscle memory of, okay, I see these red lights in front of me, I stop at the stoplight. I see the car hitting the brakes, I stop. It's not as conscious as it was the first moment you started driving because you've gotten used to it, you've gotten accustomed to it. And I would say like just like in life, that same thing has happened a lot to me where I didn't realize how much of a passive player I have been in life and not actively making decisions of how I want to respond emotionally to situations, and also creating the situations that will give me the best experience that I want for that moment, and also not judging it. Like if I want to start some shit and be like, you know, we're going to start some drama, I could easily go to some people and like, I don't know, say something to them like, hey, I heard this person say this, or I can tell someone directly, yeah, that dress makes you look fat. If I want that experience of being ostracized or being yelled at or being, I don't know, losing a friend, that's an experience that I can absolutely create for myself if I would like that. And that's an experience that I cannot judge. Can't call it good, I can't call it bad. And the same thing for other people. When I see people acting a certain way, maybe they are yelling at their child, which 99% of us would say that's wrong. I am no longer judging people's decision because that's experience that they are having in life. And it's just a part of this ecosystem. Again, like some of us have to get killed. It's the way it is. Some of us will have to live a long time. Some of us will have to get sick. Some of us will have to be healthy. Like the good and bad, it's going to happen to somebody. And I don't think I probably will be interfering as much in other people's experiences, but just rather let them live it. I might be a listening ear, definitely a listening ear. Like one of the things I'm feeling at the moment is that when you start living life like this, or when you start, let's say, playing a game that's different than the game that people are playing around you, you can choose to still engage with it at their level, even if you don't believe it. Because like for me, one of the experiences that I'm looking to have personally is I want to have a lot of human experiences, positive and negative, and I want to interact with people to make their life better in terms of whatever their worldview is. So let's say I'm not a very religious person. I don't like religion personally, Christianity or Islam. I'm not really about that. But when talking to a Christian, I will absolutely say positive things about Jesus and their religion. When talking to a Muslim, I will say positive things about Allah or Muhammad. And my experience that I want to have is also validating their experience and their worldview. But I'm doing this very, very consciously, like the way I'm engaging with people to make sure that they have a good time, even if I would look at myself and say, I don't want this for me, but I may want this for them, validating their worldview. I'm not doing this all the time, but I have noticed more so now the amount of, not a lot of thought, it's very quick thinking of what do I want, what do they want, what do I have to do for that? and then just doing it and living life like an active player. Like when you're in a game, you know how you have choices between choice A and choice B. Um, I've stopped reacting as much and then asking myself, okay, choice A, choice B, like which route do I want to head down next? And then once I'm at that place in that live moment, A or B, maybe there's an option C, D, and F, who knows? But like I'm noticing this behavior when interacting with people of stopping. If someone wants to bitch on the phone and complain, I will let them bitch on the phone and complain. If something is taking a long time, like I'm waiting for a friend, I have the choice to say, oh my God, they're so inconsiderate. They're wasting my time. I can absolutely do that. Or I can view the situation differently and say, it doesn't fucking matter. Why do I think I'm so great where I have to worry about my time being more valuable? Like, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. One of the things that also crossed my mind is, and I thank my father for this very much, in the way he would police our speech in the house. We were not, there are certain words we were not allowed to say. One of the words that we weren't allowed to say was the word can't, cannot. Like if I were to say, I can't do this, he would immediately stop and say, you can, just figure out how, or change the way we're speaking to say, I'm in the process of learning how to do this, or I'm in the process of trying to do this, and not using the word can't, because again, I think words are powerful. The same way, let's say this game probably has, let's say, a construct or rules, I would say words play a great amount of effort in enforcing what we believe or how we handle things. Because again, like if the version of yourself, every version exists out there, and if you have to just pick one version of yourself that you want to exist and follow that for that moment, when you say the word can't, you immediately eliminate the version of yourself that can. And I did not really realize this, really realize this until this morning, probably when I was just thinking. I was like, oh wow, that when I say I can't do something, I'm eliminating that version of myself. I don't typically use the word can't a lot anyway. Maybe sometimes I'll use it just because I recognize for other people that's just how they talk. But like if I use it for myself, I'm very aware of every time I hear myself say the word can't, I kind of just stop and go, no, you can, but maybe it just might take a little time. It might take a little effort, like not limiting myself, but also not being unrealistic. Because like, for example, I cannot grow wings out of my back and fly. So obviously I'm not talking about that, but like being reasonable when I'm doing this like in a reasonable way with actual limitations. Like, am I limiting myself or am I actually not able to do that? That's kind of when I should be using the word can't, and recognizing what is a limiting belief that I have versus what is actually impossible for me to do. And I think that's probably why my dad had us do this, because when I hear other people use the word can't a lot, it's oftentimes because they are limiting themselves, because like you, in some cases you can. If there are other people who have done it, not saying that you should compare yourself, but like that's proof that some things are possible. But again, if you believe you can't, you can't. So no one can change your mind. If you can't, you can't. But you know, that doesn't mean someone else can't. So just be a bit mindful of that, because that's something that's on my mind. I felt like saying that this morning. The other thing that crossed my mind, this might be the last part of this video, this long ass video, is that I realized when I left the Jehovah's Witnesses, that was one worldview that I had, which was even smaller than local. That was just like a Jehovah's Witness worldview, where I'm gonna call that like an extremely tiny cage. And that once I left the Jehovah's Witnesses, I entered, let's say I felt like I entered, let's say, the general public, that has its own, again, own set of rules, own set of like its own worldview for people who are secular. Again, it felt like, at least now, it feels like I've exited one cage and I've traded it just for a larger cage that has its own set of rules in itself. And I think I don't know, like I made this exchange where I felt like I was hurt by the people in my smallest cage, so I left them and I joined this other group of people who are secular in this cage, who have this worldview. Whereas, let's say, Jehovah's Witnesses don't believe in, I don't know, uh, they they don't believe in like let's say war. They believe in remaining politically neutral. And so that's the world I grew up in, like not getting involved in politics, things like this. I left that, expanded it into this new world, worldview where politics are very, very important. Like you should be involved, again, on a local level. But now I'm thinking about things from a universal scale. Doesn't fucking matter. It's not that important at the end of the day. And that's kind of the worldview I'm sitting in right now. But I do recognize that I absolutely have to sometimes see things from a smaller perspective just to engage with other people, because I don't want to get to the point where I feel in the experience that I don't want the experience of isolation, at least not right now in this moment. Perhaps there'll be other moments in my life where I'm absolutely willing to experience that, because it's not like I've never been isolated before, so I can do that, but I don't want that right now. So that's not the experience I'm looking to create, but I'm looking for the experience of being able to connect to people to some reasonable extent, to be able to help them out, to be able to experience life without the concept of good and bad and judgment. This is the experience that I'm looking to have right now. And so this is why I've decided to adopt this worldview. But at the same time, it does make, and I don't want to say there are some moments where I'm realizing that people that I'm talking to don't share the same worldview as me. We probably have all experienced this to some extent. Like when I left the Jehovah's Witnesses, I realized that small community of 8 million people no longer see the world as I do. And that's okay. But now, again, with this larger cage that it feels like I'm in, most of the people that I'm talking to or meet put a lot of emphasis, a lot of their presence, their attitude, their thoughts, beliefs in a system that we have just created, which at the end of the day doesn't really mean shit, but we just all agree that it has meaning, and apparently that's okay. But I'm kind of stepping back from that, and it's really hard to help somebody realize that they have it's really hard to help somebody with their problem when the problem doesn't really exist, because like they're looking for a solution or a listening ear. But now when I'm hearing people, again, the problems that I'm hearing are not actual problems, and you can't help somebody see that the problem that they have is just in their head. Because the moment you try to do that, you're going to get some level of resistance, because now you're challenging their worldview, you're not validating their worldview. And I'm not in the place where I want to extend that much energy in helping people realize that, because that's not who I am, that's not my job. I'm only living as myself and for myself, essentially. So it does put you in a bit of a weird predicament when you are trying to see the world from that perspective. That's essentially it. This was a long ass video. I didn't think I would ever talk about this topic, but I decided to. And also, that's also the reason why I should mention that I shaved my head bald. I don't know if I said that or not in this video, I can't remember. But just that I was thinking about, I've been talking for a while about shaving my head bald. I was gonna do it at the end of New Year's, because like in 2020, either 2023 New Year's or 2022 New Year's, I don't remember which way it fell. I think maybe entering 2023, so in 2022 perhaps, I shaved my head bald, just like this. And that's what I wanted again, and I was waiting for New Year's to do this. And then yesterday I had to stop and I asked myself, I'm like, okay, if this is the worldview that I have, if this is the experience that I want, if I want to experience life as a man without hair, why am I waiting? Why am I making an event out of it? Why am I waiting for a certain moment or a certain date? If this is what I want and I feel like I want it now, is there anything in my hand that I can do to do it now? And I was like, yeah, I got clippers in the back. Let's roll these bitches out and cut this shit off. And so that's exactly what I did. And the experience I wanted was, I wanted my boyfriend to cut my hair and just have fun with it, not take it too seriously. The pictures, man, I looked like I was smoking crack. Like the haircut was really bad, but it was a fun experience that I got to have in that moment. And again, the consequence, there's not really many consequences because it's just hair, but I can understand for a lot of people being bald is such a hard thing to do or go through because maybe you feel like you look ugly, maybe you don't like the shape of your head. Because like my head, you can see it, it's like a little wavy right here, and honestly, that's not ideal for me. I want, if I could have a choice, I would want one of those like smooth ass bald heads, like a Mr. Clean type. But I don't have that, and that's absolutely okay. Because at the end of the day, it's just hair. It doesn't matter, and so that's why I cut it off as well, just because I realized I'm like, you know what? If this experience I want, I should go for it. I should do it. I should take it. And I'm trying to live in every moment right now, doing the things that I want to do. And if I don't want to do it, say no. Like again, you know, sacrificing what you want for others may be something we may applaud, but also it's not necessary. It's not necessary to put other people's comfort ahead of yourself unless that's the experience that you want. Um, but yeah, I'm on a little rant right now. So I'm gonna stop this video. For the 5 people who may have watched this far, or to the 1 person who may have watched this far, thank you very much. Um, I think maybe this channel was a lucid dreaming channel originally, but I think I'll probably start recording just my general thoughts because I have a lot of them and I'd like to document it for myself in some way. And I feel like YouTube is a great way to document stuff because free storage and people probably using YouTube for a long time. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And that's how I have shifted my, whatever this word is, shifted my thinking process of playing this game on a lower level to playing it on a, I don't want to say a higher level because that sounds a bit arrogant. Not a higher level, just a different level. Because again, it's not, one is not better than the other. The person who sees the world from a universal scale versus the person who sees the world from a, what's that Jonestown cult thing where everyone drank the Kool-Aid? Like whoever like was living in that, let's say you're a small American Christian cult who has that worldview that's like this, both of them are okay. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day which worldview you have, but I would say that it is very important to each person to question their worldview and then to decide how they want to live life. Because again, when you die, there's a lot of regret probably in not making decisions and letting life happen to you passively. And you only get one life. So that's all. Peace.